So we're all trying to figure out exactly what this tariff deal is going to be. Donald Trump saying earlier today, we have a deal, saying, yes, the U.S. did give in. That's kind of what he hinted. He didn't hint. He actually said it, and I take that as something positive. But he did say that the U.S. got what they wanted. He called it tough negotiations, said both countries got something. But he also spent a bit more time talking about the fact that farmers, American farmers, will be happy with this deal, which leads me to believe, and I guess everybody else, that something here has to be going on with supply management, right? The dairy sector, because he kept pointing out American farmers. Although, as I said when I talked about this, off the top, do we have an issue with Canadian beef or pork or soy? Could that be included in this? I don't know. Julian Karaguesian, we spoke the other day, served in Canada's Ministry of Finance and the Embassy in Washington as well, now a professor of economics at McGill. Julian, thank you for coming back on. So based on what you have heard, everybody kind of weighed in at least a little bit. Jameson Greer, Dominic LeBlanc, and yes, Donald Trump as well. Well, what's your take on what's going on here?
Well, I think the U.S. has backed off on some of its demands. I'll start with some industries. Autos, metals like aluminum and steel and lumber. They've said, like President Trump said today, and I believe Jameson Greer said, many times before today, that there will be tariffs on these things. So the question is, we just don't know the rates yet. I'm assuming autos will be 10 to 15%. Aluminum may get a big break because the Americans don't make aluminum. Steel is going to come down from the 50% tariff. We just don't know what yet. So there will be tariffs. I think that's the concession that we've made. The one main one is that we're going to accept some tariffs, and we're removing all our retaliations at the federal and provincial level. So federal retaliatory tariffs in Canada against American auto imports, provincial bans on liquor, on U.S. alcohol. There are also less known, but there's also provincial governments on procurement spending on American suppliers. Those will probably go too. Minister LeBlanc said that supply management is intact. Both President Trump and Jameson Greer said there's going to be market access for all American goods, and Trump said farmers will be happy. I tend to believe Minister LeBlanc more. I don't think he would say that. I don't think he would say supply management is intact if it's not true.
Okay, so just to clarify, though, because that's something, again, with respect to whatever intact means, we're not getting rid of, right, and that was never going to be the case, supply management as a policy, but it was a matter of, as they say, quotas perhaps changing. Is that what you believe?
Yeah, apparently the Trump administration, it's really hard for me to believe they have a problem with the details of how we hand out quotas, but they say they do. I think it's just a card they're playing, but they say they do. And when President Trump in his first term renegotiated NAFTA, they turned it into CUSMA. One of the things that they pressured us to do, and we had to give in on that to get an agreement, was we gave the Americans 3.9% of our dairy market in quotas. They can take almost 4% of our market. Now, they haven't used all 4% of this quota. And President Trump and those aligned on this issue with him have been arguing that Canadian companies are getting part of this quota. So that may change. Maybe the American companies will get all of it. And maybe the quota is going to go up. Maybe it'll go up a little bit to 5 or 6 or 8%. But supply management pretty much is going to remain intact.
So what do you heard Donald Trump talk about our farmers in America? Did you hear him talk about that?
I did. I don't. Okay. For the life of me, I'm wondering if he's just saying that and hoping they'll forget before the midterm elections. Because I don't think they're going to have total access to our dairy, eggs, and poultry markets.
So I asked before, and maybe this is a bit of a naive question, beyond when we talk about supply management, you just said dairy, poultry, et cetera. Is there something else American farmers have wanted from Canada beyond those three sectors? We produce pork, right? We have soybeans. Anything else?
I can't imagine. And there were outstanding issues on pork bellies before, on beef. But there were no, to my knowledge, there was nothing that was part of the negotiations except supply management and access to our dairy market. Okay. So I'm not really sure what he's talking about.
All right. Now, we got word just before the top of the hour, CTV News finding out that apparently, I don't know if you've seen this, steel and aluminum are going to see their tariffs reduced. Is that a surprise to you?
The aluminum one, no, because they don't make much aluminum. I mean, Canada makes 10, 15 times more aluminum than the United States. They moved out of that business a long time ago. They do a lot of recycled. So having a tariff on our aluminum is very costly for them. I could even see them eliminating that entirely eventually. Steel, I didn't think it was going to stay at 50, but yeah, I was a little surprised they're moving on that because steel is a big issue in the Rust Belt states, and those are the swing states.
Right.
There's an election coming up, but I don't think they're going to move. They're not going to move down to 5 or 10%. I think it's still going to be significant.
And I remember the deal. We talked about a deal with China at some point, right? Over potash. Could that be an issue?
Over potash?
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, but going back to steel for a sec, that could also be an issue with China because Chinese steel does come into a lot of Western countries. Mm-hmm. And Washington's been saying that Chinese steel leaks into the United States.
Through Canada.
Through Canada.
Right.
Now, Aaron, did you mean our potash exports to China?
I don't know. Unless the U.S. looks at those and goes, wait a sec, we're not there. We know they're not happy with the fact that we're even doing business with China, really, for the most part, right? They pointed that about EVs and whatever. If this deal with China on potash, which they had at one point used in retaliation, the Chinese had against us, could that be something the U.S. wants more of or perhaps wants us to stop doing business with the Chinese? I'm just speculating here, Julian. Obviously, I don't know.
Well, when you look at the trade talks and the tariffs, when you look at the whole last 18 months, and particularly since Prime Minister Carney and President Xi of China signed a strategic partnership, Washington has been telling us that they're not happy with that, as you alluded to, and that what's been agreed to this week. They've been also telling us that this is just a stage one agreement. They've told us in the weeks prior to this one that they're coming back with more demands for a comprehensive agreement. And one of the demands they're coming with is a kind of a Fortress North America where we align our trade policy with the United States vis-a-vis China and other countries. I just don't see us giving in on that, and maybe they're going to let that go because one of the sweeteners today that we may find out about is that we're going to follow through with the F-35 contract. we've ordered 88 F-35s. So, and we were wavering on that on purpose because we were intimating that we could cancel that if you heard us. And so maybe Prime Minister Carney has given them a guarantee that we won't do that.
Okay.
And so maybe they'll back off on us trading with China.
So let me ask one last thing, and I don't want to run out of time. The other thing I brought up was this out of nowhere, Donald Trump tweeting about Keystone XL. What is that about?
Well, initially I thought it was a suggestion that they want privileged access to our oil. And then I thought it's a carrot and stick. They're offering a carrot because the Keystone is the last stage of the Keystone system. There would be a shortcut pipeline from Hasty, Alberta, right down to Nebraska. And the long and the short of it is you would be able to take 850,000 barrels of oil. That would be really good for Alberta and Saskatchewan. And so the pipeline the project was killed by the Biden administration, apparently on environmental concerns. So Trump is reviving that as a carrot. But also I think there's something a little more sinister. I think he's offering that as a carrot to Alberta and Saskatchewan so they pressure Carney on other things.
Oh, okay. This is Trump, you think, squeezing here? Yeah.
So he offers U.S. support to have the pipeline resuscitated, and then the premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan come to Ottawa and say, we want this. Just give in on lumber.
But they already got a pipeline. Carney gave Alberta that pipeline that's going to run west, and not to the States, but another pipeline.
Yeah, another pipeline that runs west. Now, Keystone is the final stage of the Keystone system. It would be a 2,000-kilometer pipeline from Alberta to Nebraska. They would take a ton more oil. I think it's exactly 830,000 barrels. So they'd be really good for Alberta and Saskatchewan. I think Trump's trying to divide and rule here a bit.
All right. Listen, the last thing I would ask you, because I'm running out of time, I know we have a 3-day pause on this, right? Trump has decided to do that. Are you optimistic this gets done, or do you think that there's a chance it still doesn't?
I think there's a chance that it still doesn't get done. If Trump, he's volatile. He may change his mind, but he seems to have. It all comes down to what the tariff is going to be on automobiles, because Carney needs Premier Ford on side.
Right.
And if the tariff is too high, I just don't see him getting Ford on side.
All right. And other premiers he has to appease as well, including Christine Frechette here in Quebec. But as we said, aluminum seems to be part of the deal, so we shall see. Julian, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.